Welcome back to Yahoo Finance on the Move. We're going to bring back a friend of the program, Tendayi Kapfidze. He is the Lending Tree chief economist, also the father of triplets. Congratulations to your wife and you. And we're glad you're here, but we have to turn to the Fed and this discussion about negative interest rates and what that could possibly mean. Because as we've heard from other guests, and I believe from you in the past, it doesn't seem to work in other countries.
So they've had them in Japan and they've had them in Europe. They don't really seem to do much. It seems to me that by the time you get to the point where you need negative interest or you're contemplating negative interest rates, you've got other problems that are much bigger that can't be fixed by interest rates, which is just the price of money. So cheaper money really isn't going to get you much at this point in the cycle.
Yeah, I mean, Tendayi, the money is already awfully cheap, right? And the other number that we got this morning that's in your wheelhouse is mortgage applications, up 5% last week, week over week, up 13% year over year. So if you want to spur home buying, rates don't seem to be the issue there.
But I mean, I will admit that, some of this boost in home buying that we're seeing is because of rates. It's just that I think the kind of payoff you get as you get lower and lower rates diminishes. The housing market also is seeing a bit of a catch up because we did have some contraction in activity because of the COVID crisis. And now a lot of people are coming out because rates are low and because, they kind of got delayed by the COVID crisis in purchasing homes.
Hey, Tendayi, it's Julia LaRoche. And kind of going off of the COVID-19 trends that you're seeing, what are you seeing when you just look out broadly? Are you seeing more folks kind of look at the suburbs, or is the city still appealing? I would just be really interested in where exactly folks are moving or looking to buy.
Yeah, so I've seen some anecdotes, heard some anecdotes that some people are looking to get out of, especially New York City in particular. I don't yet quite have data that I can solidly say that I think it's a trend. And even if it's a temporary trend, I question whether it'll be a long-lasting trend. So I think COVID is throwing a lot of things up in the air, and it'll take a while to really figure out where the dust settles. But certainly some people have decided that city living is no longer for them. And also with the increased ability to work remotely, some people are deciding that they don't need to live in a very expensive place. They can take that same income, go to a much less expensive location, and benefit that way as well.
I want to reference a study that you shared with us last year, and it was using data from 2019 going backward, which showed the rates of homeownership among white Americans in comparison to African Americans and Latinos and other people who are not white. Do you think we're going to see those numbers change now that there's a renewed emphasis on equality in the United States, or do we have a long way to go?
I would hope the numbers change. I think we do have a long way to go. I think fundamentally, when you look at all the different disparities between minorities, Black Americans in particular, and white Americans, a lot of it has to do with government policy. It's government sanctioned. It's government enforced brutally when you look at what police forces do. So really, there would need to be some legislation in order to change those housing numbers. So that would have to be something that is done at a government level, both federally, state, and locally. So it needs government intervention. It won't happen just in the marketplace.
Tendayi, I may be putting you on the spot here a bit, but what about the issues that can't necessarily be backed up by data? I mean, we're talking about home ownership here. Yeah. African Americans are significantly more likely to have their mortgage application rejected when you compare it to prospective buyers who are white. And that's not something that's just about the income. So how do you think you go about addressing something like that? The unspoken racism.
Yeah, I think one of the great things that's happening, and there's still work that needs to be done on this, is that with a lot of the digital mortgage platforms, you actually see less of that discrimination. There was a paper that came out last year, I believe it was UC Berkeley and some Fed researchers, where they found that the fintech platforms, that incremental amount that minority borrowers, particularly African American borrowers, had to pay was reduced, and the gap in approval rates between white borrowers and minority borrowers was also reduced. So I think that because you don't have to have this face-to-face interaction with a lot of the digital platforms, that actually helps somewhat in narrowing that gap.
Tendayi Kapfidze, the other reason people leave the city is because they have 3 or more children and they need a lot more space. All the best to you and your family. Thank you for joining us. Tendayi is the Lending Tree chief economist. We'll be
Hey investors, Zach Guzman here. Are you interested in learning more about the markets and getting the latest financial news? Well, then click right here to subscribe to our Yahoo Finance YouTube channel. Get the latest up-to-the-minute market analysis, big interviews in the world of finance, and information on how to manage your money every day wherever you are.